guys, Luke and Sarge here, and welcome back to another episode of the Young Professionals podcast. Luke, who do we have on the show today?
Sarge, really excited today. We're talking to someone who has a lot of experience in the media industry. So very, very pleased to welcome Erica Lewis, who is a media professional having recently graduated from Deakin University with a Bachelor's of Film and Television, majoring in Communications, Journalism and Broadcast Journalism. Currently working as a freelancer with different roles at Channel 9, Erica has focused on gaining as much experience in the media industry as possible over her short career. Erica has an incredible attitude, as you'll come to hear very shortly, to finding different opportunities and then leveraging them towards attaining her goals. Having worked on different TV shows like The Project and Postcards, and also assisting with different roles at Channel 9 and hosting her own very early morning radio show, all during her time at uni, and she continues to do so now. Erica, it's really good to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, thanks for being here. Let's kickstart where you've kind of left off, and we'll get to the point of why it's been, hit the pause button a little bit. But why don't you talk us through your recent roles at Channel 9 and what you're doing there, and also touch on the very early morning radio show that you also host.
Yes. So end of last year, before I graduated uni, because I graduated uni in February this year, I started working at Channel 9, which I thought was it's a kind of a dream job to be finally in the industry even before you graduate. And I started working in the library, which is where a lot of journalists start. And I think it was only 3 days of working there, and they offered me another position as assistant chief of staff, which I had no idea what the role was, and I thought it was like a really high up role, and it is. And so I started working from 5 a.m. as assistant chief of staff, and then doing a double shift in the library till 6 p.m. at night. So I was doing that for a couple of months. And in March, just before the pandemic hit, I got a text from the executive producer of Postcards. And I just remember I've never happy cried as much as I did when I received that text, because it was too good to be true. Like, I've dreamed of working on a show like Postcards. I don't know if you remember Getaway.
Certainly do. Sunday nights. Yep.
Yeah. I grew up watching that show, and it was always my dream to be able to work on that show. Like, secretly I wanted to be the presenter on the show and be like, this is Bali, and let's explore this place. But yeah, when I got that text from Postcards, I was just ecstatic. I was so happy, and I didn't even believe it. And so I trained for a week in the desired role, which was production assistant / socials / it said etc. or whatever the company needs you to do. So it was pretty much having different roles. So I would help the editor look over the supers, the name supers, make sure the spelling's all correct. I would help hire the required cameraman that need to work that day, and as well as call up competition winners and sound like I'm a scammer being like, hey, you've won this competition, when it's a real competition.
I'm calling from the ATO.
Yeah, exactly. So I was really excited to work in that position, but unfortunately on the first day of work, that's when the government announced we're going into the lockdown. And being a travel and lifestyle show, that's pretty much two things that the government doesn't want you to do at the moment. So unfortunately we had to postpone production. So I'm not currently in work at the moment, but it's hopefully, my fingers are crossed for next year when the season starts up again.
I've got every faith that it will. One, it's a popular show, and two, you're obviously a very hard worker. So I have every faith that they'll want to keep you on. Let's talk about the pandemic and the effect on the media industry in a sec, because I think it's relevant to students coming through. But first off, do you want to just touch on, say, what the production process is like for a show like podcast. What's it called? I'm blanking on postcards. There we go.
Don't worry, they're very similar words.
Yeah, no, it's too
I'm
early in the
surprised
morning.
I haven't messed up on them yet.
Yeah, but why don't you walk us through what the production timeline is like on that, and then kind of touch on in a bit more detail what someone like you in terms of a junior role would be doing. I know you touch on you're calling people up for competition winners and things like that, but it sounds like there's a bit more detail to it. Do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, sure. So I haven't had too much experience on the show, as I only had like the week training. But pretty much we plan the show a couple of weeks ahead of before it airs. And my role would be to find different small businesses that we can promote and show on our show. And I don't want to speak too much about it because I'm not sure how accurate I am just because I'm so new to this and I don't want to say something that's untrue. But yeah, my role was pretty much calling up places, researching places, checking in with my executive producer to make sure that, you know, if she's happy with that location, and then pretty much organising talent and crew from there under the advice of my executive producer. And then after the show's filmed, sometimes they said that I could go on location and actually get to see how everything comes together, which is really good because it ties into my film side of me, because I did a film degree and I absolutely love that side of production. But then afterwards, you get to experience the editing process as well and sit with the editor and
watch all the magic happen.
Yeah, exactly. So you I kind of love being a production assistant just because you're not stuck in one role. You get to do lots of different things, and it's not like it's all riding on you. Like, for example, the editing, you get to see the editing process, but you're not solely in charge of the editing. You get to be part of the actual production where they're filming and the host is talking to the camera. You get to be there, but you're not actually the host, and nothing's riding too heavily on you, but you get to I'm an organizer at heart, so I love kind of just watching everything happen.
Sounds like a great way to learn through osmosis and get exposed to a lot of different parts of the media landscape.
100%, yeah.
Pretty keen to understand what you were doing as a library archivist before you jumped into your postcards role. Could you take us through what a library archivist does and what that is?
So pretty much you're finding footage for the 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. news, as well as the journalists and their packages that they put together. So packages are just like their little, when they go on road and they interview people, you kind of find overlay footage for that. Also, we archive those packages as well. So we store the footage away. So, Do
you take the tape and put it in a shelf?
Actually we've got a whole like shelf where you got the wheel and you turn the wheel, and you've got all the way back from, I don't know what year, but like
wow.
1900. Is it 1900? No.
Probably. I don't know.
I don't know.
You're the expert here, not me.
Back when it was all in black and white, and sometimes we have to get footage off old tapes as well. So, learn how to use a, what do you call them? A DVD? No, not a DVD player. That's too modern.
VCR? VHS?
VHS, that's what I was going for. Yeah. So... And it's got all the squiggles and stuff.
I remember watching the news when I kind of still do now, but like when you were younger and you'd watch, say, not to be too morbid, but, a story on, XYZ famous person has died, right? And they've died that day. But then the news will play 10 minutes of old footage of them at a concert or a sporting event or whatever they are. Is that kind of what a library archivist is doing that day when the news drops? You go, okay, what are all the bits that we've got of this particular topic? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, exactly. So we look up in our system, like we search for keywords, and it comes up with all the footage that we have stored previously, and we send that off to the editors and pretty much the producers who need that footage. And
so does that mean when people are, because I assume that's a constant process. So, right, if you're in 2020
Yes.
and the camera people are taking footage of stories now, then that becomes a big archive for stories later in 2030, for example. Like, what's the process of when you are archiving new footage? Are you tagging keywords all the time? You're tagging exactly who's in the footage and all of that? Like, I imagine that would be quite a time-consuming process.
Luckily, there's a system that's been set up recently where, it makes it clear. So it's just like putting information into boxes, which is good. So you've got a title, you've got links to, like, you got a certain section that you can add links to similar videos. So just for example, if there was something on Delta Goodrum, you can link it to another Delta Goodrum article, so that when you're looking for any footage for Delta, they'll all be linked there when you try to find it.
No. So I imagine it's the same thing if you read, I read the AFR online often, and they're often linking back to other articles that they've written 5 or 6 years ago and doing all that kind of thing. I imagine it's pretty similar.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. I think I've learned something more about how the news works, which is good. We can bounce back a little bit to kind of the start of your education journey, if you want to call it that. Let's take yourself back to, say, when you're in year 10 or year 11, when you're starting to think about, hey, I want to be in film school or whatever it might be. What was the thought process there like, and were there subjects at school that interested you particularly, and what did you do there to get ready for what was coming after?
Well, I didn't change schools, but I changed the campus of schools so that I could study media, because they didn't offer it at the specific campus that I was going to. And at that point, I knew that I loved film, and I knew that I loved editing, and I had a desire to create music videos, and I used to use, I don't know what, I think it was like Movie Star or something, and I used to create my own music videos with my brother from a young age. And so I kind of just followed what I was interested in, and it wasn't until probably choosing my subjects for uni that I realized that I'm just going to give film and television a go, because I could do real estate, I could do health science, I could do all this, but why not give it a go? Like, I'm living at home, I'm not planning to move out. I may as well give it a shot rather than regret it later on in life.
I think it's good. It's a great way to be and actually have a crack and do something you're interested in. A lot of people we've spoken to have spoken about how they do things because someone else decided to do it, or they followed their mates into doing something, or it's the safe path. And I think your choice to go and be involved in television and media and film is awesome, because you've actually gone and done something that interested you and not taken the safe path.
Yeah, well, I didn't even think that I would even get to this point. So, like, in terms of working in the industry, I thought it was impossible. People were telling me it was impossible. And even when I got there, I felt like I was an imposter. Like, how on earth did I get in this industry? What am I doing? But at the same time, I was like, I'm so happy. I love it. I can't believe what I've done.
Just on that, Erica, keen to understand where those thoughts come from, and why people think, oh, okay, well, I can't make it, or it's going to be so hard to make it.
Well, I realized, because I had no connections to the media industry until my final year of uni, when I was doing my internship. That's why internships are really important as well. I think it was coming from people who have never worked in the industry, and they see it as a different world, like especially television. They see it on a screen. They're like, oh yeah, it's on a screen in our homes, but like probably I kept getting told, oh, thousands of people have applied for these positions, and it's very impossible to get like that. But that wasn't based on any real experience. So
I think that gets to the crux of what we're trying to do with this podcast, right? As people are getting advice from people that, and not to say anything disparaging about them, but often they don't know what that industry is. They've just heard it from their mates, or what they're saying might have been accurate 20 years ago, but it's not today.
Yeah, and they're not doing it to harm you or in any way or step on your passions. It's because they want to protect you. They want to make sure you live a successful life and earn enough money to buy a house and do the things you need to in order to survive and not end up homeless on the street. So they're doing it out of a place of love, but I don't know what made me choose to just follow what I'm happy with. I guess I just followed my heart pretty much. I think I'm still doing that.
Oh, that's it. That's a strong innate, I guess, thing to have, is that you've got this desire to follow what you're passionate about. It's awesome. Going back to okay, so you're making all these music videos with your brother and you're loving it and you've got this interest in film. Do you want to just step us through in a bit more detail your decision to, hey, I want to change campuses because I want to follow this, and you're still at school at that point. What were the subjects that you wanted to change campuses for, to chase, and what did they kind of teach you coming into uni?
Well, I didn't really learn anything from my media course at school. So I changed campuses just for the media course because I knew that's what I enjoyed. That's what I was having fun in. And I wanted to learn more about it. But yeah, I didn't learn anything from year 12. It was year 11 and 12 BCE subjects. It was more writing essays about films and whether I think there was an essay we had to write about whether playing video games causes violence in children and that sort of thing. So it wasn't really as what I really wanted to do, but it was something.
It was more on the right track. It sounds like that studying media at school is much more academic.
Oh yeah, my school was highly academic. It didn't really have a focus on media or artsy subjects. It was more lawyers and biologists and that sort of thing.
And while you were at school, were you like you said, you're making the videos with your brother. Were you doing anything else to like flex your interest in media and explore that a bit more?
I was in communication with our house teachers. So, if that makes sense, with different houses that you're in. Yep. For like sport and stuff. And I was in communication with them, and I was putting together little videos for like from the year, and like at our house dinners, there would be like a presentation of what people have been up to and that sort of thing. So I was highly participant in those little things.
I think that's a good opportunity to get involved in that. That's a good example, rather, of finding something that you want to do and then making an opportunity for yourself. And that's something that you've obviously done throughout your uni career. And let's step forward a year. So say you're into uni now, and you've spoken about how important internships are in the industry. Do you want to step us through how you got your first taste of that and what the process was?
All right. Oh no, I gotta remember how I got it. I think it was just advertised on our uni page that they were doing an internship with the Mungrook Footy Show. And actually, the year before, I spoke to the assistant floor manager who was actually interning there. And she just said she absolutely loved it. And you could see it on her face. She was so smiley. She was so happy. She was so passionate about it. And I was like, I really want to do that for someone else. I really want to encourage people to be in the industry and, hopefully make them smile and, I don't know, have that spark that she had on me, It
sounds like this person left a really good impression on you, and it was like your interest wasn't necessarily just in media, but it's also like in making like people happy and in deriving enjoyment out of these sorts of things.
Yeah, 100%. I just want to help people and help them follow what they're passionate about as well. And the next year I ended up getting her exact position. I was like made it my aim to encourage all the people who decided to come and watch the show, like uni students who were studying film and media, that wanted to see what it was like in a real television set. I wanted to have the same impact on them and encourage them that, it's something anyone can do if you try.
If you give it a go. And
yeah, exactly.
From there, we also understand that you got involved with the radio as well. How did that come about, and what's working on the radio like?
It's amazing. I was so happy to be working on the radio. I think my first ever show, I couldn't stop thanking the host. I was just like, thank you. I'm so happy. Like, thank you for having me involved. And yeah, like ever since I was a child, I was listening to the car radio, wishing that I could be that presenter, wishing I could be that host, because it was just so relaxing and calming to me. And I actually found it on a student youth journalism network site. It was just like a Facebook page, and it was actually run by one of my best friends that I didn't know at the time, but now he's my best friend. And yeah, it was just someone posted, hey, I'm looking for a co-host. Is anyone interested? And I was like, yeah, I would I'd love to be involved. And then she said it started at 5 a.m. So my co-host, Laura, she said it started at 5 a.m. in the morning, and it was all the way out in Cranbourne. And I live about 40 minutes away from Cranbourne.
It's an early morning for you then.
Yeah, and I didn't have my license at the time as well. And so I said, hey, I'm super interested in radio, and I would love to catch up with you and chat about radio. I don't think I'll be able to be your co-host just because it's impossible to get to. There's no public transport running at that time, and I have no way of getting there. And so what we did is we caught up. We went to Starbucks, and we had one of those Starbucks drinks. And yeah, she was just telling me about radio and how she got involved as well, because she's younger than me, and she got involved through school.
How did you so you catch up for coffee at Starbucks and get to know the co-host? Then what happened after that? You obviously got involved in the radio.
Yeah.
How did you get down to Cranbourne?
So about 10 minutes before I was supposed to meet her, I told my dad that I'm meeting someone who works in radio, and he offered to drive me until I got my license. So for the first year, he drove me there, which is really, really nice.
Wow. Shout out to that.
Yeah. And so I was really happy that I was able to do that. But also a year later, my co-host Laura, she told me that the reason she chose me out of about 10 or 15 people that she talked to was because we had that relaxed conversation. It wasn't like a one-on-one interview in an office. It was just over coffee, just talking and chatting about the industry. And I think that's really important. If you want to get into the industry, you have to build connections with people and show that you actually are passionate about it. You're not just looking for a job.
On that, Erica, when we spoke before the chat today, you touched on a story along those lines in terms of you were just sharing a pizza with someone, and that turned out to be quite a good opportunity for you. Do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah. So my first ever job in the industry, well, it wasn't really a job, it was a work experience. I was chatting through my internship with the Mugger Footy Show, I had been interning on the show I say working, I get those terms confused now. I'm just like, yeah, it's a job, I'm working.
I don't think work necessarily means you have to get paid. I think if you're there showing up and helping someone out and contributing to the team, I think that's work.
Yeah, 100%. So it had been probably 2 or 3 months into the internship, because it was a 7-month internship, I think. And every now and then I just had a passing conversation with this audio director. And one day we're sitting down during our break, and we were just eating pizza. And he asked me, he's like, so what do you actually want to do? And I said, I would love to be a journalist or someone helping other people or something like that, being a voice for someone else. And he's like, yeah, but if what's top of the goal, like, what's your dream job? And I was like, oh, definitely a presenter on the project. And I said that in like that's never going to happen. Like, what? And he's like, oh, I actually work on the project. And I was like, oh, can I come? Can I come next time you work? Like, as a complete joke. And he's like, you know what? I'll set something up for you. And I did not expect him to actually set something up, but he ended up talking to the boss, and got me to initially have like a tour around the studio and stay for a show and stay with him in the audio department. And from there, they offered work experience to me, and I was, ecstatic actually, because I never thought I'd ever get to work behind the scenes on the project.
Like, what was that like? Like, how did you feel when you get to go into the project and actually see it recorded and see what's happening? Like, can you just describe, how you were feeling?
Strangely, I felt confident. I felt like I was supposed to be there. And usually I would feel like super nervous and like, am I supposed to be here? What am I doing? But I remember walking through, because I had already been to like 5 live tapings of the show. I was just that fan of the show, like, so that much of a fan of the show. And I remember pushing open a door that had previously been pushed open by the person who was leading the audience. And when I pushed open the door, I was like, oh my God, okay, I'm here. And I have like, no one's in charge of me pretty much. It's just me being in this studio. And it was just a really, really cool feeling.
I think it's awesome hearing you describe that. And I think we had a similar conversation with Seamus on the podcast, who's become a pilot, and he's wanted to become a pilot since he was 6, and he described a similar thing to that. I think it's really cool when people go, oh, I've wanted to be this for 15 years or something, and they get the first experience. And I think it just speaks to the passion that you're showing about the industry and getting involved. And something that we're taking away from a lot of these conversations is that when there is that legitimate passion, it often works out more so than not. And to that point, Erica, you're obviously really passionate about it. You've been doing heaps of stuff while you're at uni.
Yeah.
Was that the norm for people when going, say, through the film and television degree? Are people involved in everything, or is it easier to set yourself apart to get into a really competitive industry if you are getting involved in all these things when you're at uni?
Surprisingly not. Like, I don't really know anyone who was doing as much as I was doing. It was, no, there wasn't. I guess it is easier to set yourself apart if you just got to put in the time and the effort. And it wasn't work for me. It was because I was so passionate about it. Like, it was worth the time, and it wasn't hard work for me. Like, of course there was hard work involved, but it didn't feel like it because I was happy to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning if it meant I could go live on air for 2 hours and tell people stories, interview people, and then go to uni to study journalism, a little bit more about the industry, building up my skill set, and then getting into a TV studio for my internship all on the same day, and just having fun and just knowing what I need to do, knowing my role, knowing my job, but just loving it.
Reflecting on that, like all the things you did while you're at uni and continue to do now, what are some of the things that you look back and you go, oh, that was a really important learning?
I guess it's okay to make mistakes. Like, you're going to make mistakes no matter what industry you're in. You are going to mess up at one point. Like, you might not be able to get a certain prop on set, but that's okay. Like, I know it's frustrating at the time, but it's not the be all and end all. And I feel like don't let that get you down, because there's always another chance. Like, as long as you have that relationship with the team and and have a good environment. Things go wrong in television all the time. You've seen the TV bloopers.
I'm sure they're edited as well. They probably don't show the extent of what can go wrong. But on that, Erica, so let's say you talking to yourself when you're in year 12 or first couple of years at uni, and you're trying to get your foot in the door. What's it like, and what would you recommend to students in terms of a strategy to pick out people that they wanted to contact or anything like that? Are there particular avenues that are better than others in the industry?
Well, firstly, I would say don't be afraid to get in contact with people. You can do that via LinkedIn or even Facebook, or just send them, if you can't find them on Facebook or LinkedIn, go to Instagram and see if they have an Instagram profile. There's no harm in reaching out to someone saying, hey, I'm loving what you do. Is there any chance you can get me in contact with someone who can give me more experience in the industry? Because the worst they can do is say no or ignore your message. But I think always trying and always applying for different roles, just do it. Like, what's the harm?
And if you try and you get nothing back, that's the same as not trying. So why not just give it a crack?
Exactly. And if you're passionate about it, if you get a rejection letter, I got plenty of rejections, like when I was applying for internships, I applied for a cadetship at the ABC and they said no. And I actually applied for an internship at Channel 9 probably a few months before I got work at Channel 9, which was weird. And they said weirdly that I was overqualified for the internship, even though I hadn't been paid at that point in the industry. I'd just been volunteering all my time.
I think getting that response is certainly you have to get used to that as well, and kind of reading between the lines as to that could probably mean 10 different things in terms of you're overqualified.
It's weird. I was like, how do I become underqualified? Like, what? I've been working to get into this industry and now I'm overqualified for that. But,
it's a tough one, and getting the first role I think is key. But I think the best way to get there is to, one, understand the industry that you're trying to get into a little bit more, and that only comes through talking to as many people as you can. And then, like you said with the story about having pizza and just telling people what you're keen to do, you never know where that can lead. And obviously it's turned out really well for you. Erica, there's a few more things that we can chat about before wrapping up, but I think it's important to talk about, I guess, not really the elephant in the room, but like the challenge that's happening in many industries at the moment. And that is obviously COVID and the pandemic and the effect on work. You had an interesting perspective that I hadn't really thought about before when we were chatting before we started recording today. Do you just want to talk about your view of dealing with kind of setbacks and how people in the media in that industry, that you have to deal with that anyway, in terms of how contracts are structured and all of that?
Yeah, so I was one of the, I guess, unlucky people in terms of getting help from the government financially, because even though I've been working in the industry for 2 years, I work for different industries. So I work for Channel 10 for like 3 weeks, and then I work for Channel 9, which was going to be my long-term one, but I only started probably like 3 months ago, and like from March, 3 months. And so working off contracts, one of the ways to get financial assistance from the government was to be employed for longer than 12 months at a specific industry. And I didn't have that. So I couldn't get any help that way. And also job seeker, I didn't qualify for that because I wasn't 22 yet. I was still viewed as someone who was young, even though I still have to pay like health insurance and all.
Still got bills
that.
To pay.
Exactly. And like car insurance as well. And it's weird that they view it as like you have to be 22 to get this help, but then we still want you to pay like all these extra bills. And
I guess more specific to the to finding roles and dealing with setbacks in terms of, say, you just landed your role at postcards again, not podcasts, postcards, and then that kind of gets taken away from you, which is obviously really disappointing. How do you deal with that, and how do you move forward? And I guess you're still trying to get different experiences if you can. But I would imagine in terms of the nature of the industry, different TV shows have contracts for a set period of time, and you don't know if they're going to go live the next year as well. Is that just something that people kind of coming into the industry have to realize and get used to, and, you know, just accept that that's going to be part of life?
Yeah, I feel, well, with postcards, I wasn't too upset because I knew that it wasn't my ability, or like I didn't get fired because I wasn't good enough. It was because of the government not being able to, like, going into lockdown and trying to help everybody be safe. I feel like I've also built up a network with different companies. So I know that there's always going to be, actually there might not always be. Yeah, you just kind of have to be okay with that. Like sometimes you could have work for 3 months and then, you know, no more. And I guess that's when you just start reaching out to old contacts, and people usually contact you for work if they know you well, like if they know that you can do certain jobs. And also with me, I made sure that I was kind of diverse around the different roles that I could do. So I wasn't just a camera operator. I wasn't just a production assistant. I have a wide variety of different roles that I can do. So if someone needs me for like social media, or if someone needs me for editing, I can just jump into that role and be like, yeah, I can do that for you.
One last one before we wrap up. How does a student, a university student or a high school student who's interested in media and television and radio space get to a position where they can have that flexibility, or such a generalist skill level where they can jump into anything that they need to do?
I guess just practice, because I studied film and television degree, and I also studied journalism. I kind of combined those two together. So I just tried to learn as much as I could, pretty much. And yeah, sorry, that didn't really answer your question.
But no, I think if you wrote out all of the experiences that you've got, like what you're saying in terms of doing the freelancing in the library, and then helping out on set, and then helping with the editor and all that kind of stuff. If you were to write out all of those things on a bit of paper, you'd have a fairly long list.
You'd use a couple of textbooks.
Yeah, exactly right. But then reflecting on that, right? Like if you take half an hour to sit back now, you're like, oh, I've done 10 different things, right? And then if you can build up that arsenal while you're at uni through going on, I don't know what particular websites they were, but the uni internship websites and all of that kind of thing. If you just say yes to as much stuff as you can, then that list will inevitably get longer.
Actually, I don't know if you've heard of SYN and Channel 31 as well. They are amazing platforms to build up your skills and make connections with people in the industry. So I think someone who's at uni and is wanting to get into that, try out these different platforms, because you can be a producer in a day. Like you can be a TV presenter in a day, and you're paying them to get experience, but that experience is going to help you in the industry.
Oh, for sure. And is there, I don't know the answer, but is there something to be said for starting a YouTube channel or starting an Instagram page that is a particular niche that can show your skills in a way that you don't necessarily need a job for? I think that's something that is become evident in the creative space. Is that something that would be helpful?
Personally, I haven't started any YouTube channels, but definitely YouTube. I know that a lot of people are gaining confidence, like even if it's just sitting in your room talking in front of a camera, to learn how to talk in front of a camera if that's something you want to do. But you can also build up your editing skills when you put those little videos together, and as well as your producing skills. You can write like a full script and then, make your own production, which is actually something that me and my journalism friend, we created a full television show during isolation because we didn't have work. There was nothing we could do. So it's pretty much.
Where can we find that television show?
Uh, well, it broadcasts on Channel 31, but you can find us on Facebook. It's called Community Focus.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Community, for all listeners out there, Community Focus, go check it out with Erica.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so Erica, just on a final note, is there, and this might go nowhere, I'm not too sure, but if you're a film buff and you're interested in the industry or in the profession rather, is there a particular kind of line or a character or anything from different movies that you've come across that you might have liked growing up that you have, taken to heart, and it might be some advice that you've kind of thought of when you're trying to progress in the industry?
No, not really.
No, that's all right. I wasn't too sure if that would go anywhere. No, that's all right.
I wanted to hit you with a good one-liner to end the podcast, but
I thought there might have been. No, that's all right. But in light of that, is there any, I guess, one-liners that you can come up with, or I guess last bits of advice for young people coming through the traps and hopefully getting into the industry soon? Is there anything that you want to leave them with?
Just follow your passion, follow your heart, and don't be afraid to work for free and reach out to others to build your skills.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to leave it. And yeah, Erica, really appreciate your time. So thanks for coming on today.
No worries. Thanks for having me.